If all your beliefs were nothing more than echoes of the crowd, what would remain of you? Strip away the customs, the language, the slogans you repeat without thought, and ask, what is left when the borrowed garments of society are torn away? The answer is not freedom, not individuality, but a naked emptiness. The human being, when deprived of the herd, discovers not a radiant self, but the abyss of the will-blind, insatiable, gnawing. We imagine ourselves as reasoning creatures, guided by light and clarity. Yet beneath the fragile crust of thought, there boils a darker truth. We are driven by a force without aim, without meaning, without mercy. The will to live, this ancient tyrant, compels us forward as a whip drives cattle, forcing us to graze endlessly in the pastures of desire, never satisfied, never at rest. You believe your goals are chosen freely, that your pursuits ennoble you. But look closer. Every hunger is replaced by another. Every success fades into boredom. Every victory turns to dust. Existence is nothing but a pendulum swinging between suffering and tedium. And yet, most cling to illusions. They march in step with the herd, repeating the lies of progress, the delusions of happiness, the hollow laughter of the marketplace. But when the music stops and the noise of the crowd dies down, each individual stands alone before the torment of existence, facing the truth they have always fled, that life itself is suffering. So let us strip away the masks. Let us examine this endless cycle of striving, of illusions that bind us, of the tragic comedy that we call human existence. Perhaps then we may see whether there is a way not to conquer life, for it is unconquerable but to escape its endless torment. Look at the masses. They swarm in streets, in offices, in theaters of commerce and distraction. They imagine themselves free, but their movements resemble the flight of starlings. A collective frenzy, a single nervous system without individuality. The herd mind, so loudly celebrated as society, is but the grave of independent thought. Each man believes he thinks for himself, yet what are his thoughts but borrowed phrases, inherited prejudices, and convenient dogmas? The opinions he defends with vehemence are not his own, but echoes of his environment. He is a mouthpiece for the age, a puppet pulled by strings of fashion, religion, politics. He imagines himself an original, but in truth he is a repetition. Consider how easily entire populations are swept into war, into fanaticism, into the worship of new idols. The individual drowns in the crowd, intoxicated by belonging, terrified of solitude. Even his desires are not his own. He covets what others display. He longs for what is praised. He despises what is ridiculed. The herd mind dictates not only thought, but even hunger itself. Yet, beyond conformity, there lies an even darker chain: endless desire. The will, in its blind striving, ensures that satisfaction is always fleeting. The moment a desire is fulfilled, it decays into boredom, which is nothing but the hunger of the will in disguise. Life becomes a wheel, suffering when striving, emptiness when attaining. Round and round it turns, and man is chained to it until death releases him. What is called progress is nothing more than the polished face of this wheel. Humanity invents new tools, builds new machines, erects new monuments to its supposed greatness. But beneath the shine lies the same suffering, merely dressed in different costumes. Did the invention of the locomotive eliminate despair? Does the glowing screen abolish loneliness? Have wars ceased? Have greed and envy been extinguished? Has cruelty vanished? No, only their masks have changed. Civilization itself is a magnificent distraction, a kaleidoscope of novelties designed to conceal the abyss. We speak of growth and advancement, as if humanity were ascending a ladder, yet the rungs are nothing but recycled illusion. The child becomes the adult, the peasant becomes the citizen, the horse becomes the automobile, but the will still gnaws, unappeased. The illusion of progress comforts the herd, for it suggests meaning. We are moving forward, they say, but toward what? Toward death, always. Each generation constructs its monuments, its ideologies, its philosophies of hope, only to be swallowed by time. The pyramids stand, but the kings who built them are dust. The cathedrals rise, but the prayers once uttered within them are forgotten syllables. The skyscraper gleams, but the office worker who built his life within it dies unremembered. And so mankind rushes onward, intoxicated by its own inventions, blind to the unchanging truth. That suffering is the essence of life, and progress does nothing but polish the bars of the prison. Ask yourself, are you truly free? Or are you another voice in the chorus, another hand in the swarm, another actor in the endless theater of illusions. The herd mind assures you that you are advancing, that your desires are justified, that your life has meaning. But beneath these consolations lies the silent scream of the will, that ceaseless hunger which no possession, no achievement, no applause can ever still. The crowd dances to music it does not hear. It laughs at jokes it does not understand. It worships idols it does not know. And all the while, death waits at the edge of every moment, erasing every trace, silencing every voice. Look closely at humanity as it gathers in cities, in markets, in temples of commerce and temples of prayer. At first glance, it appears as though each person carries within them a unique flame, an individual destiny, a mind capable of independent thought. But strip away the decorations, and what you see is a collective organism, the herd. Its movements are synchronized, its voices echo one another, its desires are contagious like disease. The so-called individual speaks, but he does not speak his own words. He repeats the clichés of his time, inherited from newspapers, from the pulpit, from the newest doctrine shouted in the streets. What he calls his opinions are nothing but borrowed garments, draped upon him by the invisible tailors of custom. If his neighbor praises something, he too praises it. If his neighbor condemns, he too condemns. And he mistakes this mimicry for conviction. But is he aware of this? Rarely. The masses are not conscious of their own conformity. They believe they are free, and it is this illusion of freedom that secures their chains most firmly. They imagine themselves as sovereign minds, yet they are carried along by tides stronger than themselves, like driftwood swept downstream by the river. Observe how entire nations can be intoxicated by a single slogan. Suddenly, millions speak the same phrases, march in the same direction, even kill under the same banner. This is not reason, this is contagion. Rational thought would produce divergence, but what we see is uniformity, the surest sign that thought is absent. Herd mind requires no truth, only repetition. What is called public opinion is therefore nothing more than the echo chamber of this herd. It is the collective voice of those who have renounced thought in exchange for belonging. Woe to the one who refuses to echo it. He is shunned, ridiculed, or persecuted, for nothing terrifies the herd more than an individual who dares to think differently. To think for oneself is the gravest heresy in the temple of conformity. But herd mind is only one face of the human tragedy. Its darker twin is endless desire. If the crowd gives man his opinions, the will gives him his hungers, and these hungers are inexhaustible. The moment one is satisfied, another arises, like the head of a hydra growing back after being severed. Consider the man who strives for wealth. At first, he imagines that gold will deliver him from suffering. When he acquires it, he discovers a new torment, anxiety about losing it, envy of those who possess more, boredom with the comforts it buys. The poor suffer from want, the rich suffer from satiety. Both are slaves to the same will, bound in different chains. The same is true of ambition. The artist longs for recognition, the scholar for reputation, the lover for conquest. When he attains it, he is restless again, seeking greater victories. Existence is a pendulum swinging between pain and boredom. Pain when the will is denied, boredom when it is momentarily sated. No moment of rest exists, save in fleeting intervals that vanish as soon as they appear. Human beings invent elaborate systems to disguise this truth. They speak of progress, of the advancement of civilization, of the noble march of history. Yet, what is progress but the changing of costumes in the same play? Wars continue, only with different weapons. Greed continues, only with different coins. Cruelty continues, only with different justifications. Humanity decorates its prison cell, but the walls remain unbroken. The illusion of progress is perhaps the most successful trick the will has ever devised. It allows men to imagine they are moving upward toward some grand culmination, when in fact they are merely circling the wheel of desire. Yes, they travel faster on iron rails. They speak across oceans with wires and screens, but the essence of their existence remains the same: striving, suffering, dying. A steam engine may replace the horse, a factory may replace the workshop. But does man's heart suffer less? Has the suicide rate diminished? Has the anguish of love, the torment of envy, the desperation of poverty ceased to exist? We worship novelty because it distracts us. The new machine, the new philosophy, the new political movement, all these promise to deliver meaning. But soon the novelty fades. and the hunger of the will returns, more ravenous than before. The so-called progress of mankind is nothing but the restless motion of a prisoner pacing in his cell, counting his steps to convince himself that he is going somewhere. And so the herd continues to march under banners of illusion. They call their slavery freedom, their conformity individuality, their restless striving progress. They flee from solitude as from a plague, because solitude strips them of these consolations. Alone, they would be forced to confront the truth that life has no goal beyond the perpetuation of suffering, that every desire fulfilled is but the seed of another desire, and that their so-called self is nothing but the mask worn by the blind will to live. And what of you, listener? Have you truly thought your own thoughts, or have you merely echoed the crowd? Have you pursued your own ends, or have you run in circles upon the wheel of desire? What remains of you when the illusions are stripped away, when the noise of progress, of wealth, of ambition falls silent? You stand then before the naked will, and you see that it is blind. It does not care for your happiness. It does not know your goals. It has no aim but to continue its own striving. It drives you forward, as it drives the animal to graze, the insect to breed, the tree to spread its roots. You are its servant, not its master. And the more you strive to satisfy it, the more its hunger grows. Thus, herd mind, endless desire, and the illusion of progress form a trinity of human bondage. The herd dictates your opinions, the will dictates your desires, and progress distracts you with false promises. Together, they construct the theater of human existence, a theater in which each man plays his part without realizing the script was written long before he entered the stage. And when the curtain falls, what remains? Nothing but silence, the silence that was always waiting beneath the noise. Existence is not guided by reason, nor by purpose, nor by any benevolent order. Beneath all appearances, beneath the polished mask of civilization and the intricate forms of nature, there throbs a single, monstrous energy, the will to live. It is blind, it is irrational, it knows neither why nor whither, it only strives, endlessly, insatiably. What is this will? It is not your conscious choices, for these are but ripples on the surface. It is not your reason, for reason is but the lantern carried by a blind man. The will is deeper, older, more inexorable than thought. It is the impulse that drives the seed to sprout, the bird to migrate, the lover to burn, the miser to hoard, the soldier to kill, the artist to create, the fool to laugh. It is the current that flows beneath all consciousness, the subterranean river that floods every act of life. We imagine ourselves as rational beings, guided by logic and deliberation. But reason is not the master, it is the servant. The will commands, and reason obeys, constructing elaborate justifications after the fact. Observe the lover, he burns with desire, then invents 1,000 reasons why his beloved is uniquely worthy. Yet his passion is not born of reason. It is reason that bends to his passion. The decision comes first, the justification after. Thus, reason is but the lawyer of the will, defending its blind impulses with borrowed arguments. And what does the will seek? Nothing but itself. It strives for no final goal, no ultimate satisfaction. It strives simply to strive. When hunger is satisfied, it returns. When thirst is quenched, it arises again. When a goal is reached, another appears. As though the will delights not in attainment, but in the endless treadmill of pursuit. Life is thus condemned to dissatisfaction by its very essence. Consider nature itself. The tree stretches its roots deep into the earth, its branches upward into the sky, not because it knows why, but because it must. It spreads, it competes, it consumes the light, it chokes out its neighbors. And to what end? To produce more seeds, which will repeat the same blind striving. The animal lives only to feed, to fight, to reproduce, to perish. And man, though he wraps his striving in words like honor, success, or happiness, is driven by the same compulsions. Do you believe your love is sacred, your ambition noble, your labor meaningful? Strip away the masks, and what do you see? The will in its nakedness, the compulsion to survive, to reproduce, to dominate. The poet's verses, the general's campaigns, the merchant's calculations, all are servants of the same master, all disguises for the same insatiable force. It is this blindness of the will that explains the irrationality of the masses. If man were truly guided by reason, history would not be a slaughterhouse. Wars would not erupt generation after generation. Fanaticisms would not sweep entire nations into madness. Cruelty would not stain every century. But the will is irrational, and thus man is irrational. The masses are but the body of the will, a single organism of blind striving, rushing into conflict, into self-destruction, into the abyss. Consider war. Why do men march willingly into slaughter, killing strangers who have done them no personal harm? Because the herd commands it? Because a flag waves in the wind? Because words like glory and honor intoxicate their blood? Beneath these pretexts lies the will, the same force that drives the animal to claw and bite. The soldier, imagining himself noble, is but the will's puppet, sacrificing his life so that the species may continue its ceaseless struggle. Consider love. Why does the lover suffer torments, commit follies, even risk death for the beloved? Because of romance, destiny, affection? No. It is the will demanding reproduction, chaining individuals together for the sake of the species. The lover imagines he pursues personal happiness, but he is an instrument of the will, compelled to sacrifice his peace for the continuation of life's endless cycle. The tragedy of love is that the individual pays the price for the will's blind command. And consider ambition. The statesman, the conqueror, the artist, each burns with a desire for recognition, for legacy, for power. Yet beneath this desire is not reason, but the will's hunger to expand, to assert itself, to leave traces in the sand before the tide erases them. The conqueror builds an empire, but it crumbles. The artist creates a masterpiece, but time forgets it. The statesman enacts laws, but they are overturned. What remains? The suffering of countless lives sacrificed to the vanity of the will. The irrationality of the masses lies in this. They are incapable of perceiving the will that drives them. They believe themselves free, noble, purposeful, but in truth, they are puppets dancing on invisible strings. They worship illusions' progress, happiness, justice, but behind these idols lurks the same insatiable striving. Humanity is like a man running on a treadmill, sweating, panting, straining, yet remaining always in the same place. The great thinkers of history glimpsed fragments of this truth. The Buddha saw life as suffering and preached renunciation. The Stoics saw the futility of desire and sought tranquility. Even the Christian, in his talk of original sin and redemption, intuited that man is enslaved by forces beyond his reason. But none articulated the essence of it as clearly as the philosophy of the will, that all striving is vain because its goal is never fulfillment, only endless continuation. The masses recoil from this truth. They prefer the narcotics of illusion. They prefer to believe that their work, their wars, their loves, their entertainments carry some higher meaning. They prefer to imagine that history is a march toward enlightenment, that suffering is justified by progress, that their personal struggles will be rewarded with happiness. In this way, they conceal from themselves the monstrous futility of existence. But the will cannot be deceived. It continues to gnaw, to drive, to torment. No illusion silences it. The laughter of the crowd fades, the intoxication of victory passes, the ecstasy of love cools, and the will rises again, restless, demanding, unappeased. And so, existence is a tragedy played endlessly, with different costumes, different stages, but always the same script. Striving without aim, suffering without purpose, dying without redemption. Thus, when the masks are stripped away, man is revealed as the servant of the will. He believes himself free, yet every breath is compelled. He imagines himself rational, yet his reason is but a cloak for impulses that predate thought itself. His wars, his loves, his ambitions, his philosophies, all are tributaries feeding the same blind river. The masses, intoxicated by illusions, drown in this current without ever perceiving it. They call their servitude freedom, their restlessness progress, their compulsions destiny. Yet behind every word, behind every act, the same truth resounds. The will strives, and man suffers. This is why history repeats itself, why tragedy returns in endless variations, why no generation escapes the torments of those who came before. For the will knows nothing of redemption, it only knows how to hunger. Philosophy without flesh is a shadow. Let us therefore look at how the will reveals itself in the theater of the world. We need not search far, for every page of history, every scene of daily life bleeds with its mark. Consider the great wars. Each begins with high-sounding words: honor, justice, liberation, destiny. The masses cheer, convinced they march for noble causes. Yet, what follows? The same spectacle repeated endlessly: bodies rotting in fields, cities reduced to ash, children orphaned, promises broken. Did the 30 Years' War differ in essence from the First World War? Did the Crusades differ in essence from the colonial wars of later centuries? Only the costumes change, only the weapons advance, but the essence remains. The will demanding sacrifice, feeding on blood to perpetuate itself. Consider the frenzy of revolutions. The people rise against their masters, driven by the cry for freedom. Heads fall, palaces burn, new banners are raised, but soon the new rulers resemble the old. Corruption, oppression, inequality return in new forms. The French Revolution ended not in liberty, but in guillotines, terror, and an emperor crowned in splendor. The cycle repeats because the will is not abolished by new slogans, it merely shifts its mask. Consider love in its common, everyday tragedy. A young man burns with passion, convinced he has found the one being who will complete him. He suffers torments of jealousy, of longing, of despair. He believes this torment sacred, as if blessed by fate. Yet in truth, he is but an instrument of the will, driven to reproduce. Once the union is accomplished, the fire cools. Affection withers into indifference, or worse, into hatred. And what remains? Children new vessels for the same restless striving. The individual believed he was pursuing happiness. In reality, he was serving the blind command of the species. Consider ambition in modern society. Men and women labor endlessly for careers, for status, for wealth. They sacrifice their health, their leisure, their peace, in order to climb ladders that lead nowhere. The office towers of great cities are monuments, not to reason, but to compulsion. Inside them, thousands chase promotions, titles, recognition, and for what? To be a little richer, a little more exhausted, a little more forgotten. The will uses their striving to maintain the restless machinery of life, then discards them without pity. And consider progress itself. We boast of our machines, our technologies, our marvels. Yet, what has been gained? The worker in a factory today is no less a slave than the peasant of the Middle Ages. Only the chains have changed from iron to debt. The soldier with a rifle suffers as the soldier with a spear once did. Only the methods of slaughter have grown more efficient. The citizen with a screen feels the same loneliness, the same envy, the same dissatisfaction as the villager of ancient times. The will remains. Its torments are merely refracted through different mirrors. Even art and philosophy, though glimpses of liberation, betray the same pattern. The artist creates not because he is free, but because he is compelled. The philosopher writes not to resolve existence, but to wrestle with the same despair that consumes him. Creation itself is the will wearing a finer mask torment, transfigured into beauty. History, then, is not progress, but repetition. The wheel turns, the costumes change, the stage is rebuilt, but the play remains the same. Kings fall, republics rise, machines whir, lovers sigh, children are born, wars erupt, and beneath it all the will throbs, insatiable, indifferent, blind. If life is nothing but the ceaseless torment of the will, then one might ask, is there no door, no crack in the prison wall, through which even a breath of freedom might enter? Not freedom in the vulgar sense, not the freedom to pursue new desires, to feed the will with new illusions, but the freedom from desire itself, the loosening of its chains. There are such moments, rare, fleeting, fragile, but real. They are not victories over the will, for the will cannot be conquered, but they are moments in which its voice falls silent, and the world appears in another light. The first of these is independent thought. To think for oneself is to wrest a fragment of existence away from the herd. It is to peel back the layers of borrowed opinions, to risk the loneliness of seeing with one's own eyes. Most cannot bear it. They cling to the safety of collective noise. But the one who dares to think alone, though condemned to solitude, achieves a strange dignity. He ceases to be merely a mouthpiece of the age. He becomes a witness to truth. Yet this path is not joyous, it is austere. For the thinker stands outside the crowd, stripped of its consolations, condemned to clarity. The second path is through art. In aesthetic contemplation, for a brief instant, the will falls silent. When we gaze upon a painting, when we lose ourselves in music, when we are absorbed in a work of poetry, the ceaseless gnawing of desire is suspended. We no longer strive, we simply perceive. We become a pure, will-less subject. seeing the world not as a battlefield of needs, but as a play of forms, colors, harmonies. It is a fragile reprieve, for soon the will awakens again. But in those moments, existence is transfigured. Art does not abolish suffering, but it redeems it by showing it as image rather than torment. The third path is compassion. Strange, is it not, that in a world ruled by blind striving, there arises in some hearts a recognition of the suffering of others. In compassion, the veil of individuation trembles, and one sees through it. The pain of the other is felt as one's own. In that instant, the illusion of separateness weakens, and the will's dominion falters. Compassion does not abolish suffering, it multiplies it. For one feels the pain of many, yet it transforms existence. For it reveals that all striving creatures are bound in the same tragedy. From compassion arises justice, kindness, gentleness, not as lofty ideals, but as the natural trembling of one's suffering being before the pain of another. The fourth path is solitude. To withdraw from the herd, to renounce its noise and its ceaseless contagion, is to stand closer to truth. Solitude strips away the masks, forcing one to confront the nakedness of existence. It is terrifying, for it leaves the individual face to face with the abyss, but it is also liberating, for in that silence one is no longer enslaved to the opinions and distractions of the crowd. The hermit, the philosopher, the recluse, each in their own way, turns from the theater of illusions, not to find joy, but to escape noise, to dwell in the cold clarity of being. And the final path is renunciation. This is the most radical, the most difficult, the most absolute. It is the turning away from the will itself, the quiet refusal to continue the endless game of striving. It is not mere resignation to one's fate, nor mere abstinence from this or that desire, but a profound reversal, the denial of the will to live. In rare individuals, this renunciation becomes complete. The saint who abandons all possessions, the ascetic who extinguishes the flame of desire, the mystic who dissolves into silence. Such lives are rare because they demand the ultimate courage to will, to embrace nothingness as liberation. These are the fragile cracks in the prison wall. They do not destroy the prison, but they let in a faint light, enough to remind us that we are not wholly condemned. Yet one must not mistake them for salvation. There is no salvation, no golden kingdom awaiting beyond death, no triumph of reason or progress. There is only the possibility of loosening the grip of the will, of finding brief islands of stillness in the storm, of renouncing the illusions that chain us. It is a narrow path, steep, lonely, without reward, but it is the only path that leads away from endless suffering. You have followed me through the labyrinth of existence, the herd with its borrowed thoughts, the endless hunger of desire, the tyranny of the blind will, the repetition of history's tragedies, and the fragile paths that offer momentary reprieve. Now only one task remains, to stand at the edge of the abyss and look down without flinching. For what is the final truth? It is that life has no justification beyond itself. It does not strive toward meaning. It does not unfold toward redemption. It does not climb toward perfection. It is a wheel turning endlessly, grinding generation after generation into dust, sustained by the blind impulse of the will to live. And death, which we fear, is not the enemy but the release. It is the moment when the will loosens its grip upon the individual, when striving falls silent. The grave is not a punishment, it is the only certainty that the storm will end. Yet until that silence comes, we are condemned to suffer, to desire, to chase shadows that dissolve at the moment of grasping. Do you still cling to your hopes, your projects, your dreams of progress? They will crumble. Do you still imagine yourself free? You are driven by a will you do not control. Do you still believe your love, your work, your legacy will endure? Time devours all, without pity. What remains of the pyramid's kings but dust? What remains of the conquerors but names fading in books? What remains of us but silence? And yet, here is the paradox. To see this truth clearly is itself a kind of liberation. When illusions dissolve, one ceases to be their prisoner. When striving is recognized as futile, one may begin to renounce it. When the world is known as suffering, compassion awakens, for one sees one's own torment mirrored in every face. And when the will is denied, even if only for moments, existence softens into stillness. But this stillness is not triumph. It is not victory. It is not joy. It is the quiet of resignation, the cool shadow of detachment, the faint light that leaks into the prison cell when one no longer scratches at the walls. To live without illusions is not to live happily, but to live truthfully. And truth, though bitter, is the only dignity left to us. So I ask you, at the end, when the crowd shouts, will you echo it, or will you remain silent? When desire gnaws, will you feed it, or will you watch it hunger and pass? When the will commands, will you obey blindly, or will you dare, however briefly, to refuse? You cannot escape the world, but you may learn to see it as it is. You cannot abolish suffering, but you may strip it of its disguises. You cannot conquer the will, but you may loosen its chains. And in that, loosening in that refusal to affirm the endless torment, there lies the only freedom worth naming. The rest is silence.